Welcome to the Terrible Podcast with your hosts from SteelersDepot.com, where you can find all your latest and greatest Steelers news. It's Dave Bryan and Alex Kozora, always lit, talking Steelers. And now, here's Dave and Alex.
Welcome to the Terrible Podcast, Season 14, Episode number 9. He's Dave Bryan. I'm Alex Kozora, SteelersDepot.com. Thanks for being back with us here this Wednesday, Steelers Nation. As of this recording, 2 Pittsburgh Steelers training camp practices to go. Dave, when you and I meet for our normal episode of the podcast on Friday, we'll be wrapping up training camp. Camp will have broken by that point, and we'll be getting ready for the Saturday preseason game against the Buffalo Bills. So in some ways, it feels like the time has flown by. In some ways, it feels like it's really taken 8 years to get to this point. But it's been a really fun summer overall.
Yeah, hallelujah, for sure. Because it seems like this last week has kind of dragged. Well, thankfully we had that broken up by the first preseason game, second preseason game Saturday night. I imagine Tomlin will speak on Thursday. If my notes are correct here, so we should get another update from him about possibility of who's playing and how long, and maybe how long the starters will play and those kind of things. So starting to wind things down here for training camp. So you got 2 more trips out there to Latrobe to go.
And Pittsburgh's been really busy with a couple of last-minute camp transactions, basically 3 players exiting, 3 players coming in. The 3 players coming in are cornerbacks Lavert Hill and Neville Clark. Hill, a Michigan man, where Tomlin loves to pull from. A new running back, Xazavian Valladay, and that will replace a couple of injured corners in Duke Dawson, who is on IR. Also, Isaiah Dunn and John Lovett. So those 3 out, 3 new players in, trying to, compete for a spot, hang around as long as they can the rest of the summer.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to watch, and because of the way the running back situation is, has seemed to shake out. Really, obviously it's Najee, then Jaylen Warren, and then Anthony McFarland at this point. And I think we talked last night on the recap podcast that really none of those other guys have challenged Anthony McFarland for that number 3 spot. When you talk about the true running backs on the roster, can Valladay do something in this little? I mean, there's still 2 preseason games left, right? I mean,
sure.
And it would be so Mike Tomlin to have yet another addition to the lore of it doesn't matter how you get here, you can still make the roster if you do something during the preseason. So I think one of the things that I'm looking most about Valladay here is, can he get much playing time in these last 2 preseason games when one of them's probably going to be slanted to getting, the top 2 units ready? And I guess B, I mean, special teams. Can he get on any of these special teams units and make an impact? Going off of who he is as a prospect, luckily we already had a draft profile up on him by Josh Carney, because he was one of the guys that was at the Shrine Bowl this year, and I think he had a 5-season career in college. I think Arizona State and Wyoming, and I think the most impressive thing, or a couple of impressive things with him, was the balance that he showed on runs, and the other thing that really jumped out, as far as stat scouting, if you will, goes, like 41 or 42 explosive runs of 20 yards or longer. And I think that was based off something like 840 carries, right around in there. So a nice strong percentage where that comes in. And, he even caught had a nice, slate of catches and explosive plays on top of it. But I mean, there's not a lot of time when it comes to him, and man, we hardly even knew John what's his last name?
Lovett. Yeah, we barely know his last name. Yeah, one practice for John Lovett.
Yeah, I mean, why they held on to him for so long. And another interesting thing about Valladay here is, he seemed to be kind of a higher priority ad for the Texans because they guaranteed, I think quite a bit of his salary and gave him a nice signing bonus there. And I think they really needed the roster space there because they got some short lines at other positions. So they waived him and he cleared waivers because of the guaranteed money in that contract there. But I mean, he was basically a free agent. He could have decided to sign with anybody, and apparently there were a few teams after him there. So maybe he felt like he has a legitimate opportunity, as best as there can be at this time of the offseason to make a roster. So I'm not saying, I'm just saying, and we know that Mike Tomlin, he practices what he preaches a lot of times. It doesn't matter how you get there. If you can make an impact in, these final couple of preseason games, then maybe you have a chance. Now, it will be a tall task with a guy, especially the way Anthony McFarland has played and practiced so far during training camp. But I find it as far as late late training camp additions go, I find this one to be a little bit intriguing.
Was Valladay just waived by Houston? When was he officially released by the team?
I'll have to look back here.
Did that just occur the other day? Obviously, he had to clear waivers because of the contract. As you said, no one wanting to take on all that additional money that Houston gave him as a undrafted free agent. But did this just occur with Valladay getting waived?
I'm not logged into the NFL site. It's going to take me just a minute here, but you can vamp on it here.
Yeah, I mean, there's a shot, and I know that it's late in camp, but I just pulled up some dates here. Ray McLeod, who made the team in 2020, got signed on August 21st, and so that's later than Valladay being signed. Zach Banner was signed August 12th, 2018, and so these guys were mid to late camp ads that, did enough to play their way onto the 53-man roster. And Banner, by the way, trying to get back in the NFL. He just had a workout with the New York Jets, so good on him for that, and wish him the best. But yeah, with that number 3 spot, I mean, McFarland has had a good summer, but not knowing what else he can provide besides being a runner and kind of emergency kick returner, in terms of special teams, he had just that one snap in the opener that was a kick return that was, went for a touchback. So, is there an opportunity there, or even for at least practice squad? You got to think about that. If you're Valladay, to hang around on a practice squad, maybe get called up, somebody gets hurt. There's going to be options there for him.
Yeah, he was waived, it looks like, on the 13th by Houston.
Okay. And I just ask that because I imagine Pittsburgh's plan was to just let John Lovett get healthy and come back. But then once Valladay became available, they probably jumped at the chance and said, hey, we got a chance to get this guy. We like him. So because Lovett was getting healthier, he was getting kind of close to a return. So I think Pittsburgh decided to, they really actually wanted to make a move for Valladay specifically, not just, hey, we need an extra running back here.
Yeah, it feels like they said, well, there's a chance to upgrade right there. Yeah. So that's, and look, in 2 weeks from now, we might not even remember,
sure.
Who he is. But once again, when it, based on what you've reported so far in training camp and the way this running back depth chart has shaken out to this point here, he's got as good a chance as the rest of them at this point.
Right. And then with the corners, Hill and Clark, don't believe either have appeared in a game yet, but Clark's got some size. Hill profile is probably a bit more as a slot type. So you could say that Clark kind of replaces more of what Isaiah Dunn was doing for the team, and Hill probably a bit more what Duke Dawson was providing as that, essentially third team slot corner. So I don't believe either practiced in team yesterday, but I'm sure they'll probably be out there today.
All right. And I don't know a lot about either one of those two.
All right, let's talk about injuries. Just give an injury recap and roundup, kind of focusing more on the players not practicing on Tuesday. That was linebacker Nick Kwiatkowski, safety Trey Norwood, offensive guard / center Nate Herbig. Larry Ogunjobi still has a boot on his right foot. Marcus Golden might have been minor, might have been a day off. Either way, I'm not too concerned about that. Norwood is making his way back. Kwiatkowski, I don't know if he'll be back over these next 2 days, but probably should, I think, maybe play in the preseason finale. Herbig, we'll see. He looked okay. And I know that Tomlin said that Ogunjobi's making progress, but with that boot, you do kind of have an antenna go up and want to keep an eye on that.
Yeah, if I had to guess right now, Ogunjobi's probably not going to play in his second preseason game. I would have to think Trey Norwood has to get on the field here pretty quickly in these next couple of days to make it. Kwiatkowski and that shoulder, really hard to tell about that, but he's not. I mean, all he's doing is walking around the field at this point, right?
With Norwood?
No, Kwiatkowski.
Oh, Kwiatkowski, yeah. He's just been doing some light walking yesterday. We'll see on that. I don't think it's incredibly serious, but he's still going to probably be out a couple more days.
I mean, needless to say, by the time we get to game time once again, there's probably going to be a good 10 or 12 that don't play in this game for whatever reason.
Yeah, we'll have to see for sure. Good news, some guys that were starting to come back. Keanu Neal practiced in full. Joey Porter Jr., his reps were a bit managed during team period, but he did return, and I would essentially classify him as full, maybe 75% full in terms of the team reps. Keanu Benton, with that ankle injury suffered in the preseason opener, he was in full pads, went through individual work, did not practice in team, but I think he's got a pretty good chance to play in this game against Buffalo. So it's good news on the rookies, and the safety group is looking a lot healthier.
Yeah, and I guess we're kind of related to Herbig there. Don't know if he's going to Nate Herbig. Don't know if he's going to play, but I guess kind of one of the more significant storylines to come out of Tuesday's training camp practice was we finally seeing Spencer Anderson get work at center, right?
Yeah, he got quite a bit of snaps at center, some good, some bad. The snaps themselves, from what I could tell, were clean. Nothing that was over the head or low or anything like that. There was one miscommunication that led to, Anderson not moving while the other players around him all moved. And so that was kind of one of those rookie moments there. But that was the last spot we had yet to see Anderson get reps at during camp. Of course, he did it about a couple hundred snaps at Maryland, so it's not brand new to him, but new to him probably in this environment. So the more that you can do, the more value that you have helps his cause and the Steelers, as Mike Tomlin said after yesterday's practice. So I imagine he'll continue to get a look there until Herbig returns.
Right. And this is something that we wondered whether or not that would happen during camp. But at this point right now, what I'm getting at is he doesn't legitimately have a shot to be the backup center, right?
I wouldn't think so. I'm still in the camp. It's going to be Herbig, unless they went outside and brought in a more, veteran type of guy. And that name, I don't know who that might be, but I'm still betting on, of the internal candidates, it being Nate Herbig.
Right. I would agree. It feels like Herbig or an outsider at this point, but this is an opportunity for Anderson to show even more position flexibility and, an additional shot to maybe make the 53.
Sure. If you can be that, let's call it eighth offensive lineman on game day, who can line up anywhere if something, goes terribly wrong, where you're the, fourth string tackle, you're the third string center, you're the, third string guard, because let's just say hypothetically, Nate Herbig's the backup, Mason Cole goes down week 1. Well, now that if you need another guard, somebody else goes down at left guard or right guard, Herbig can't play that spot because he's at center replacing Cole. And so, it de facto makes Anderson the backup guard. And so there's a lot of value there to a guy that you can, put in at all 5 spots and get you through a game.
And I think you said earlier in the week that Anderson some left tackle snaps since the game, so it'll be it's something to watch when we get into Saturday night. Here is after he played right tackle, right guard, and left guard in that game against Tampa Bay. Will it be something like left tackle and center, maybe? You know?
Sure, I think that makes a lot of sense. I imagine they want to work him at all 5 spots. If you're going to practice him at all 5, and you don't want his first NFL snaps to be in a regular season game at one particular position. You want him to run through all these snaps in the preseason, just so there's some level of comfort. Not that there's going to be a ton of it, but there's something there before you had to step into a regular season outing. So this is a guy that I think is making a real push. And again, we focus a lot on the versatility, and that's important, but the quality of the play has been, I think, pretty good as well in terms of his athleticism, finishing reps, really good feet, really good athlete to seal the edge. Probably not the strongest, and his run blocking's not that, super aggressive mauling, where Herbig is kind of more that dude. But I think technically speaking, the guy's in a pretty good place, and you throw that on top of, him being able to play all 5 spots, that creates a ton of value.
I would certainly agree. All right, what's maybe another big storyline to come out of camp practice on as we head into Wednesday here?
I wouldn't call it a big storyline. I meant to mention it during our special edition camp recap episode last night, but I was watching Alex Highsmith in the O-line D-line drill, and sometimes focusing solely on wins and losses can be a little tricky because the drill's a little messy with the quarterback and you're not really sure, if he would move and slide. And of course it's 1v1, but sometimes these guys test moves. Cam Hayward's working on a spin move. You're not going to see too many of those from him in the regular season. He hasn't done it before, but I think sometimes you just kind of, give your guy a different look and you try something different just to kind of see how it feels. I say that to say, I was watching Alex Highsmith, and he's testing some different moves, and he's gone against Dan Moore in 1v1s, and they know each other really well. And I'm pretty sure I saw it, and maybe this was my eyes deceiving me, or maybe Highsmith didn't do this intentionally, but I saw, how Highsmith's move is that inside spin. He loves the inside spin. He's so good at it. He gave Dan Moore, to my eyes, a fake inside spin, the old DeMarcus Ware half spin inside and then spin back out. And more to his credit, mirrored it and quote unquote won the rep. But I saw that from Highsmith because my whole question with him after this past season was, how do you build off the inside spin? Because tackles began to sit on that late in the year. I think Highsmith didn't win on his final 6 inside spin attempts to end the 2022 season. And so how do you build upon that? And I've seen Highsmith work on it, a true outside spin, and even this fake spin. And if I want to see if he uses it in the game, because I think that could be a secret weapon to try to build off of that really potent inside spin.
Yeah, especially look, if you can fake that spin, keep good balance and get the tackle off balance and then club him or something, is that what'd you see as he comes out of that, back out of that fake spin?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't know if he was clubbing.
Type of club, or just kind of an arm rip, or what?
No, you're just trying to bend the corner, because his calculation is, let's say it's 3rd and 7, money down, tackle's expecting, or at least anticipating the potential of the inside spin. You fake that, the tackle's going to slide down hard to the inside. You come back outside. If you can do it, it's hard to do, but if you can do it, you're going to beat that tackle to the edge because he's anticipating the inside move so heavily. So, I don't know if we're going to see it in a game. I doubt he'll do it in the preseason, because I don't know if he wants to put that on tape, and he probably does not like me saying this right now. But I just want to file that one away, because might be talking about week 1, week 7, week 14 about the Alex Highsmith at least trying this unusual fake inside spin. But it's fun to watch him work, because this guy is a really nuanced pass rusher with his pass rush playing. He's a really smart pass rusher, and he has a ton of different moves. And to see him as he progresses and gets better, and as offenses realize this guy's a pretty good pass rusher, 14.5 sacks last year, they begin to really game plan for him specifically. So it's that chess match of, okay, I had the inside spin, it worked. Now that's being countered against me and stopped. How do I build off of that? And to watch Highsmith kind of tool around and try different things this summer has been a lot of fun.
I tell you, another thing that stuck out on the all 22 as well too, going back through it and watching Nick Herbig specifically, he's not afraid to try any and everything that he's been learning, I think.
Yeah, again, he's like Watt. He's like Highsmith, where there's a ton of different moves. I mean, this guy's got rips. He loves the cross chop. I don't love the cross chop that much personally. I know that means nothing, coming from man sitting in front of his computer compared to, NFL outside linebacker. But I don't necessarily love the cross chop, but I think it works for him better than most guys that I've seen try it. I mean, he's got, ghost and speed and inside spin. I mean, this guy's, he's got a lot of tools there.
Yeah, it really looks like he's trying to put a lot of those things to use, even in those limited snaps that he got the other night. All right, well, if it happens, and boy, I hope they keep this giving us this dual end zone look on the all 22. How great is that? I mean, that's like. Mm-hmm. I mean, that's like monumental to get both. Normally you see that show up sometimes in some of the college all 22. And yeah, I know teams get probably both end zone angles of that on the all 22, but correct me if I'm wrong. This is the first time that we've really had dual end zone all 22 looks on NFL games here.
Correct. Usually it's just one end zone view, and so sometimes you might not get the best angle. But this year we're getting both views, so you always get the best angle possible. So yeah, we've gotten. Do we have the Bears secret good all 22 tape? Is that available right now? Do you know?
Oh, I don't know. I haven't even looked because the previous angles that they've been using were absolutely
right.
awful.
There's a secret copy out there, I think, that the team was using that was like a good angle, and I want to say that's available now, but I don't know for sure. But yeah, there is a secret Bears all 22 out there.
Let's see. The Steelers don't play the Bears this year, but I mean, but we'll probably, because of who they do play, we'll probably scouting some of that tape there.
Anyway. All right, what else do we have here, Dave? Kenny Pickett won the Steelers training camp home run derby for the second year in a row, so he's 2 for 2 in his NFL career. I know that's kind of silly, but it's a fun team bonding thing, and those are things you can do that you can't do if you're practicing at your team facility and everybody goes home every day. The things that Latrobe offers. That's why Mike Tomlin loves it. Those opportunities to work and focus on football, but then have some of these fun moments after practice. And that kind of makes camp pretty special.
All he does is win, 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 right?
Let's hope that continues come the fall. Anything else here, Dave? Any other review of the all 22 from this game? Any kind of final thoughts as you might come back through that stuck out to you?
I just based off of working off of something that Mike Tomlin had to say about Armon Watts yesterday after practice and all like that. I wanted to go back and look. I didn't realize that he had 2 quarterback hits in that game Friday night there. So I went back and snuck a peek at a couple of those, and one of those actually came on the interception that trashed through to, who was it? Trenton Thompson there, and the other one it was incomplete to, I think, a tight end, kind of on a middle of the field kind of over route there that looked like the left guard was pulling out, and the center was asked to try to cut Watts off, and he couldn't, and Watts got in there and got a quarterback hit on that. So that was just something that I jumped back in this morning to look at, because I didn't necessarily remember the couple of hits there. So I mean, he's quietly putting together a nice camp, right, Watts?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he had a really good day yesterday in 1v1 against James Daniels. Had a couple of quality wins there with a couple of swipes to knock Daniels' hands down. Yeah, he's gotten a lot of work. He's played left defensive end primarily. A lot of Moke's been, opposite right defensive end. So on a day yesterday where Ogunjobi's not working, Watts got a lot of first team reps. And like I said, that D-line battle, that competition has been really intense, really tight. I don't know who's going to be on my final 53. It's probably going to be among the most difficult decisions I'll have to make. And I just kind of keep repeating the phrase of some tough cuts there. Unless an injury occurs, if everybody stays healthy, and hopefully they do, again, I think he got 8 guys making legitimate cases for probably 7 spots on the 53.
Yeah, I agree. That is going to be a tough decision, and especially to see, how many, if indeed they keep 7, I
think they almost have to. If you keep 6, I mean, I think you're cutting, 2 quality players. I mean, the question is, would you be open to keeping the 3 nose tackles of Adams, Benton, and Fehoko? I know that, that seems heavy, but Adams can play in sub-package. Benton can play in sub-package.
It seems heavy. It really does. And
so who's odd man out?
I'm still thinking it might be Montravius Adams.
Okay. It's possible. I think he's had a good camp, though. I mean, you just cut a talented player like that.
I mean, could you trade him? Is that, we talked the other day about
yeah, that's true.
How many of these guys? Now, obviously, you wouldn't get a lot for them, but could you get like a 7th round, pick for them?
Yeah, I think I know that Dotson's the obvious name here. I keep forgetting. Well, I'll get back to that in a second. But I think with the defensive line, there might be a trade piece there, just because there is so much talent that I could see some team that loses a guy might come calling.
Okay.
I did want to make the point on Kevin Dotson. I know that, Mike Tomlin has downplayed it, but I think he's got a right shoulder issue. He's been battling it. He's got a big wrap on his shoulder. I think you could see him at the end of yesterday's practice. He was wincing and, I think favoring the other shoulder a bit. So I think Dotson's been playing through something this summer.
All right. Well, that's something to pay attention to moving forward.
Yeah, I mean, he's been practicing every day, but he's always got that shoulder wrapped up. I had that one report, I don't know, a week ago where he, we came off with a trainer and got that shoulder all wrapped up, and he came back in and finished. But I think he's battling something there, but that's not a guy that can probably miss too much time, because he's trying to compete for a spot and a job and, maybe somewhere else as well.
All right.
Dave, I teased this yesterday in our special edition episode, and I want to be a bit careful here because I know that the discourse on Jaylen Warren versus Najee Harris can be pretty intense, and I'm a fan of Najee Harris probably more than a lot of Steelers Nation. I think he's going to have a good year. I'm excited about both him and Jaylen Warren, but I posed a question to you, and I've been thinking about it some more myself last night and this morning. What does Najee Harris do better than Jaylen Warren? So I'm going to let you answer that first with whatever thoughts that you have, and then I'll chime in.
Boy, I feel like you set me up here to either hop back on my fungible running back platform.
No.
Or get myself in trouble with the listeners as a known Najee hater, which I'm not. I mean, I've said several times I like the player. I just didn't necessarily like where he was drafted overall, because I'm not a fan of running backs in the first round, because I do feel that you can mix and match and out of the fungibility of the position, get what you need in a backfield by having three running backs. And I think Jaylen Warren is a testament to the fact that you can find these guys if you go through enough of them. Now a lot of them might not be as all-purpose, meaning they could play on every down and give you good pass protection and all like that. I've thought more about the question that you asked last night, knowing that we were going to talk about it today. Najee running with power and the ability to use that stiff arm and all like that. I think that is definitely something when he gets into a one-on-one situation, specifically outside the tackles. I don't know that we've seen Jaylen Warren do that yet. And probably won't, because I mean, Najee's a big dude, right? And he is a very powerful dude on top of it. So that would be one thing that comes to mind, because we've already seen, like, I don't know, a good 6 or 7 instances, I think, of Najee doing that outside the tackles, right?
Sure. Yeah, I think specific to the stiff arm, that is his calling card much better than Warren can. In terms of overall power, though, I know it's a little tough to compare because they're different body types, but who do you think is the more powerful runner? Because Warren is obviously a powerful runner. Like, he's downhill. He's just a bowling ball with arms. That's Jaylen Warren. So if you had to say who was a more powerful force, who is that guy?
I think yards after contact, they probably are about I'd have to look up the actual statistics on this, but the tape feels like they're pretty much the same guy yards after contact. However, I would probably venture to say that behind the line of scrimmage, Najee's probably better yards after contact.
Okay. I think maybe between the tackles, Warren might have an advantage, and maybe that's because he's a little more north-south than Najee typically is. I think maybe in open field opportunities, you kind of get that more from Harris when he's going against some smaller DBs, and he can really use his size and frame to make some guys miss or be able to at least run through some players. But I mean, I think generally speaking, power-wise, they're both, prototype and archetype power type backs.
As far as pass protection, I might have to give the nod to Warren as far as the consistency goes at this point. As far as ability to, they're both fine catching the football. I think Warren gives you a little bit more after the catch than Warren. And as far as explosive play ability, I think Warren gives you a little bit more of that.
Yeah, because I think it's just a bit more put your foot in the ground, get downhill. So to answer my question in terms of the things I think that Najee does better than Warren, and these are just kind of, not necessarily big picture things, but just specific traits. This is an obvious one, hurdling. I mean, Harris is a tremendous hurdler, the ability to jump some of these guys. Obviously, Warren has never, I don't think, even attempted to do that. And I do think Harris, on more vertical downfield plays, he's a better receiver than Warren. I think Warren's good in the flat for the checkdowns, kind of the simplified running back tree. I think if you did have more of an advanced route, you think about the Ravens game last year, that was, kind of extended play, but, Harris running down the sideline, I think he can make those plays better than Jaylen Warren can. At least we haven't seen a lot of that from Warren to even probably evaluate that, but just based on the tape so far, Harris has been more proven in that regard.
Now, I tell you, if forced to pick, I wouldn't say given an opportunity, because it wouldn't be an opportunity for a 55-year-old broken down person like myself. But
they're going to call you up. You're replacing Valladay tomorrow.
It's not. I wouldn't exactly call it an opportunity, Bob. But if forced to choose of which guy I would attempt to tackle out in space, I'd much rather take my chances with Jaylen Warren than I would with Najee, I think.
Yeah, I think
just because I'm probably not too far off of the height, the overall build more than a Jaylen Warren. Najee would just truck my ass,
Sure, that's why I said earlier.
Well, they both would truck me. Yeah. But I'd much rather take my chances, I think, tackling a guy like Jaylen Warren out in space more so than Najee, if that makes sense.
Both would, Adrian Peterson, William Gay. You'd be on the ground either way, but I get your point. And I think, like I mentioned earlier, I think Harris out in space, that size, some smaller DBs, corners, and some smaller safeties has an advantage there. But other than that, I think it's really close. In terms of, lateral quickness and change of direction, I think Warren has the edge in terms of that downhill kind of explosive type runner that can probably get some bigger plays. I think Warren's there. I thought Harris, initially his rookie season was excellent in pass protection. I think it's kind of fallen off from there, and you've seen Warren become the third down back. So again, none of this is to be knocks against Najee. I know it kind of sounds that way. I like Najee Harris a lot. I think it's going to be a really good year for him, but I just had that question in my head, and I think Warren is, had a good summer and is a really talented back.
I think the main takeaway here is, and it kind of goes back to, I think you've said it a couple of times, heading into training camp, maybe since training camp opened, is the fact that there's no reason not to get Jaylen Warren on the field a little bit more in 2023. And look, if you want to extend, because Najee, even though he had a decrease in touches last year, and the first part of last season he wasn't healthy with the foot and all like that, and didn't have nearly the same amount of touches that he had during his rookie season. You probably want to try to limit, try to keep a cap on his snap totals in games as much as possible, with the idea that hopefully maybe in some of these games, these close games that you're in, you can actually run the football and have a fresh Najee out there punishing some secondaries on top of it there. So, sure. I think that's your main takeaway, right? Is that Warren deserves more playing time in 2023.
Yeah, I didn't necessarily even have a takeaway thought or consideration here, just kind of thinking out loud, discussion about just players on the roster and, who does what well and who's better in this area. And I understand this is going to come with a lot of probably negative connotation towards Najee Harris. It's truly not my intent. I just had this thought in my head the other day, wanted to talk it out with you. But yeah, Warren.
Let's put it out there because of who's the 93.7 that
I think Filipponi.
Filipponi put out there, I think, on Twitter that some to the effect that Jaylen Warren will be the starting running back by I don't know, what do you say, October,
Halloween, I think,
or Halloween or something like that. There. Now, look, I barring injury, I certainly don't see that happening there. But he would have been better off making the point. And it would be just as controversial, maybe not to that degree, but flat out saying that Jaylen Warren just deserves more playing time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think I'll get it. Like I said, Warren will be the third down back this year, and I want to see how the early down rotation goes. Harris will be the starter. How much does Warren chip in? Does it increase over the season? I'm not quite sure. But I want to see how they handle the first and second down duties between those two guys.
Look, if they lost Najee for whatever reason, it feels like they could get by with Warren.
Oh yeah, more than get by. I think they would be very successful with him. The question would just be, can they find, a guy to maybe give Warren a breather every now and then?
So how does this play back to fungibility?
Yeah, I mean, I understand your point for sure. I mean, again, in terms of the draft pick, the draft was years ago. The pick is the pick. You can't put that toothpaste back in the tube. You have the guys you have. And again, I think Harris is a talented player, but he's not a bust. He's, a good athlete, a good running back. And so I'm not mad at the pick overall. But sure, you see Jaylen Warren's story as an undrafted guy, $12,000 signing bonus. And I think he's, talent-wise, almost right up there with Najee Harris.
And here's a struggle that every team in the NFL faces is when it comes to running backs. Do they have to mix and match in certain situations? In other words, this guy can run and run and catch and all like that, but man, we can't have him out there in obvious passing situations because he just can't pass protect. But at least in a guy in Warren, I think to this point is that he's proven enough that he can function in all aspects. He can play on every down,
including fourth down. The dude's been a really quality special teamer, and I don't know how many reps he's going to get there this year. Hopefully not as many as last season, but he's out there in the third quarter of that preseason opener as the up back, mixing up with dudes and knocking them down and just kind of jawing with guys. And that's the Jaylen Warren mentality. So yeah, I just wanted to talk that out loud. I think you got two talented running backs on your roster. It's a good situation to have, and Pittsburgh's offense should be better off because of it.
I agree.
All right, Dave, you wanted to talk about something today. I don't know what direction you're going in, so feel free to hit me. Something about a magic number with Kenny Pickett.
Yeah, and this comes via a very fine article that Scott Kacsmar did. He does work all over the internet and does a lot of stuff for Pro Football Reference and Stat what's the name, Stathead and all like that. And he's very, very stats generated individual. Now he does also watch his fair share of tape as well too. I think he does phenomenal work on a lot of his long form pieces, if you will. And he had a very interesting post on 365scores.com. Once again, he freelances all over the place here. And this post that he did, the most interesting aspect was what year's area of interest will Kenny Pickett overcome his coaching to have a breakout year, and more specifically, a second year jump for him. And he narrows it down to one of my favorite stats, adjusted net yards per passing attempt stat, and went back and researched NFL quarterbacks to improve by 2.0, positive 2.0 in adjusted net yards per passing attempt in their second season since 1960. This had me all lathered up.
Need a cold shower right now?
Yeah, you want to talk about research that gets me excited. This certainly does. He says, we mentioned 12 quarterbacks had made this jump in adjusted net yards per passing attempt in their second season. The following chart shows those 12 quarterbacks. Here's the list, Alex. Jared Goff from 2016 to 2017 went from 2.82 to 7.72. Now, another interesting aspect about this is he shows any coaching change that was made and any new weapons that the quarterback received. And obviously, 2016 to 17, they added McVay and Matt LaFleur had new weapons of Cooper Kupp, Robert Woods, Sammy Watkins. Here's a list. Jared Goff, Nick Foles, Josh Freeman. Remember Josh Freeman. Steve DeBerg was a little bit before your time, 78, 79. But he did have a new head coach in Bill Walsh.
Seattle. Was that Seattle?
That was San Francisco.
With Walsh. Okay, yeah.
Right. But he went on to play for, I think, a couple teams, Kansas City. Norm Snead. Man, you want to talk about research. 1961 to 1962. Washington. Norm Snead. Jack Trudeau, old Colts quarterback, 86 to 87. Donovan McNabb in 1999 to 2000. And catch this. he went from a 2.41 adjusted net yards per passing attempt all the way up to a 4.79.
Scorching.
But I mean, he did qualify for that 2.0 jump there. Carson Wentz in 2016 to 2017, nice jump from 5.09 to 7.43. No head coach, but was added Alshon Jeffrey and LeGarrette Blount, where he adds Blake Bortles, 2014 and 2015. They added OC Greg Olson and a few weapons there, T.J. Yeldon, Julius Thomas, and wide receivers Allen Robinson and Allen Hurns. Remember, that was the year they signed both those wide receivers to those deals, in Allen Robinson and Allen Hurns. Peyton Manning, 1998 to 1999. This was just Peyton Manning making the jump, I think, because no new head coach, but and added Edgerrin James in the backfield. Terry Bradshaw, perhaps you heard of him. Okay. 70 to 71, and once again, the games. Some of these are significant, but they're not significant because of how obviously the evolution of the passing game and the game in general and all like that. But 70 and 71, he went from a 0.86 adjusted net yards per passing attempt number to a 3.06 there. And then really, I think the most recent one here of these 12 quarterbacks, 2021 to 2022, Trevor Lawrence.
I was assuming he was going to be on that list because I've had a lot of comps to pick at to hopefully taking that Lawrence jump.
Right. 4.54 to 6.66. Obviously, he got added Doug Peterson and Press Taylor, I think, OC. And then they added Christian Kirk, Zay Jones, Evan Ingram, Travis Etienne
came back.
Yeah, came back from IR after his rookie season there. Not a huge list, but he goes on to say here, which I really liked in this article. He does say that there is the because of how things have gone with Matt Canada so far as OC, an obvious scapegoat, and that some of this is going to be tied to Matt Canada, whether or not he makes the jump there. But Pickett's adjusted net yards per passing attempt number was, and I meant to research this last night. But he does have here that Pickett had an average 4.70 adjusted NEA, which ranked 31st out of 33 quarterbacks. If he shot up to 6.70, remember me throwing out that numbers like 6.5 to 6.7, or where I'd like to see Kenny Pickett have the adjusted net yards per passing attempt number this year. Well, it would be a full 2.0 jump if he hit 6.70 here. And if he shot up to 6.70, Scott writes here that Pickett would have ranked number 8 between Joe Burrow at 6.76 and Trevor Lawrence at 6.66, two quarterbacks thought to have arrived and figure to be in Pickett's way in this AFC for years to come here. So I'm buying everything that Scott sells in this article. First and foremost, it's rare to see a second-year quarterback, regardless of really the era, jump up, make this 2.0 jump. I do feel, and if you go back once again, and this is the part that I should have had more prepared. I've got it somewhere, but I think in that, from just throwing out the Saints game on after the bye, I think Pickett was up over 6. I forget the number. I want to say it was like 6.5 or 4 or something like that in those games with his adjusted net yards per passing attempt number. So there was some evolution in it. Now look, keeping your interceptions down obviously plays a big part in adjusted net yards per passing attempt, and also keeping your sacks down. And the reason you have to throw out that Saints game is because he was sacked like 6 times, I think, in that game. And once again, the adjusted net yards per passing attempt number goes off of attempts, completion, passing yards, passing touchdowns, interceptions, and sacks and sack yards. That's how that number's formed around there. I until another stat comes along, I think that stat is a great measuring tool. And this kind of goes back to kind of what I've said, where I think would be a good measuring stick with him. If Pickett can come out, and especially in these first 6 games of the season, and if that adjusted net yards passing per attempt number can be 6.5 or greater, really on a game-to-game basis, or an aggregate overall here. I mean, obviously you don't want to see you jump up to 9 in one game and the rest be offset it there. But if he can do that, and if this defense can play and keep their adjusted net yards per passing attempt number down, I think they're going to be in a lot of ball games here. But I really view, and that's why I kind of told you that this is kind of a magic number, if you will, for Kenny Pickett. I'm looking for this number this year to be 6.5 to 6.7. And if it's better than that, even more fantastic. They're going to win some games if it comes in higher than that. But I really think that we need to track his stat in the adjusted net yards per passing attempt number and look for a good jump to be in the 6.5 to 6.7 area. If he does that, and that defense plays the way a lot of people expect it should, they're going to be in a lot of ball games this year. Now, the wild card in all of this is the Matt Canada and all like that. And Scott goes out of his way to mention that, in most situations with what we've seen out of Matt Canada so far, he'd be gone out of all these other organizations by now. So the Steelers are really showing great patience with him. A lot of that is probably tied to the fact that they don't want Kenny to have to jump from offensive coordinator to offensive coordinator in just his second season here. There seems to, as much as the fan base hates Matt Canada, I think Kenny Pickett's on board with him to this point. If it sounds like they're going to give Kenny a little bit more freedom as to stuff that he wants to do and things that he wants to do here. But my main takeaway as we get closer to the start of this season is really what it's been and what I've talked about, leading up to this season here, is can he hit that 6.5 and 6 to 6.7 or even greater number? And if he does, look, regardless if he hits it, if this team gets into the playoffs and doesn't win a playoff game or not putting up points, a nice increase of 3 to 4 or more points per game on average, Matt Canada's, you're not going to have to worry about it because Matt Canada is going to be gone. But is there enough there, statistically matched with tape to show, hey, we have our guy here?
I know we'll be tracking that number. I know you as closely as anybody. The question is, what level of confidence do you have that he can get there based off of what this study has to say? What are your takeaways just from these 12 names? My initial thought is there's a fair amount of of the 12, most of them are recent names or relatively recent over the last 10 to 15 years. There's a couple exceptions, Bradshaw and DeBerg, and who was that one quarterback you named I never even heard of before? Yeah,
Norm Snead, Jack Trudeau. Let's see. I'll roll through the names one last time. Jared Goff, Nick Foles, Josh Freeman, Steve DeBerg, Norm Snead, Jack Trudeau, Donovan McNabb, Carson Wentz, Blake Bortles, Peyton Manning, Terry Bradshaw, and Trevor Lawrence. I think Manning needs to be thrown out just for the sheer fact that this is a guy that finally, the light came on, with him. You're talking about, definitely a Hall of Famer and a guy that, just the talent was probably going to come out there, and but as far as the recent guys here, you're looking at Lawrence, Goff, Foles. There was a time there you're thinking that, man, can Foles be a guy,
Well, that was a thought with Wentz too. Remember one of those years in the NFL top 100, he was named the third best player in the NFL. It was only like 5 years ago. It's been, I almost don't believe that happened, but I know that it did. Of the recent names, how many of them had the jump without a coordinator or coaching change? Lawrence obviously is not one of them. Going from Urban Meyer to Doug Peterson's a big change there. You said Goff had a coaching change too when McVay came in?
Right. You want to talk like last 10 years or so?
Yeah, have the cutoff being at from Josh Freeman on. So don't count McNabb, don't count Manning. That's probably too far in the 90s, but everybody in the 2000s.
Okay. In the 2000s specifically,
2000 to now, the 2000 and on.
Okay, you had Goff, he had McVay and LaFleur.
Okay.
You had Nick Foles in 2012 and 2013. Had Chip Kelly and Pat Schumer come in as new coaching change.
So they had a new coaching change from the first year to the second year, correct?
Right.
Okay, so that's 2.
Josh Freeman, no head coach. Same head coach in first 2 years. I think that's what that means.
Mm-hmm.
Who else since 2000? Carson Wentz, no change there in 2016 to 2017. Blake Bortles had an OC change of Greg Olson.
Okay.
And the only other one is Trevor Lawrence, and obviously had an overhaul with Peterson and Press Taylor at OC.
So of the 6 modern ones, 4 of them had a coaching, either coordinator or head coaching change.
Right, right.
So the 2 exceptions are, you said Wentz and Bortles?
Right. And both those guys ended up being not sustainable, right?
Yeah, right. And either of them, ended up having that great career. So
and they had both of them really had Wentz went from a 5.09 to 7.43. In the case of Josh Freeman, he couldn't help but get better, 3.69, but he did go to 6.94.
What about Bortles, since he didn't have the coaching change?
3.81 to 6.09. So even his jump made him just. Because look, if you don't have an adjusted net yards per passing attempt number of at least 6.5, you damn sure better have a good defense. To me, the standard to even compete is 6.5. All right, so you had Goff jump over that at 7.72. A lot of people are shutting off the podcast, I know right now, but I don't care. To me, this is very important. Bowles jumped to 9.18. Freeman just barely. Did Tampa Bay make the playoffs in 2010?
I can look. I don't have that knowledge offhand, but I can check it out. Yeah, I was going to ask you too about how many of those guys went over 6.5, just to see how many of them actually hit the number that you're looking for. Because you've increased from 1 to 3, that's fine. You're probably still not going anywhere as a team. No, they went 10-6, but finished 3rd in the South and did not make the playoffs.
All right, but they didn't win. They won 10 games. That's pretty impressive with a second-year quarterback, I would say. Yeah. Most recent, Wentz. What about Wentz in 2017?
I feel like they did, but I can check.
He had a 7.43 adjusted.
Oh yeah, that was Super Bowl. That was whenever Foles came in. Yeah, about 13-3 that year.
Blake did not make it to 6.5. And Trevor Lawrence, obviously, last year, 6.66, and they made it in.
Okay. So the takeaway from the study, just based off of that, is the odds of Pickett getting to that kind of jump is not great. That's my interpretation of the data.
Especially with the same OC.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah, the combination of the guys that actually hit 6.5 or better and the guys that did it without a coaching change. The history says the odds are against him. Does that mean anything? Not really. I think Pickett's. Do you still think Pickett's going to hit this number? Because I feel like you're getting the feeling he will at least get to 6.5.
That's where I'm going with this. I think he can get to 6.5.
Even in spite of the data that says historically he will not.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm not. I'm not putting my house up on all like that though. But I think when you take away, when you look at that once again, going back to the second half of last season, past the Saints game, and I mean, look, you've done the tape breakdown. You saw improvement in Pickett in the second half of that season and in a few areas there. Look, I mean, this is a boat that's trying to get out of the harbor with a hell of an anchor on it, and quite possibly a Matt Canada there. But I mean, you do have a second-year receiver in Pickens who should be better. You have, Here's another thing. They got to keep Calvin Austin III healthy because I think what he can add to that offense in different areas will help that offense do some of the things they want to do. Obviously, Allen Robinson in the slot there. But my takeaway from reading this study from Scott, and obviously watching the tape and working with this stat over the years as much as I do, it feels like he can at least get to 6.5. That's what I mean. To me, I think Canada be damned. That's a number that he should hit. To be quite honest with you.
Well, I think he needs to hit it. The data is just saying he probably won't, but I'm with you. I think based off the second half of last year, based off of Pickett in year 2, based off this offense being in year 2, the continuity, the talent. I mean, I'll have an article later this week, and this might be a little prisoner of the moment. You tell me if I'm crazy or not. I think the collection of skill guys, the wide receivers, the running backs, and tight ends are as good as anything Pittsburgh has had since probably at least 2018. And I think this group may be even deeper than 2018 that was more top heavy of AB, Juju, a healthy James Conner, and Vance McDonald.
Look, I mean, it's a talent. I mean, Freiermuth's an upgrade over McDonald,
Yeah, I think so. And then, I mean, I know
sure.
that AB is AB, and he takes that to another level. They don't have an AB like that now, but when you have the receivers of Pickens in year 2, I think he's really made a jump forward. Deontay Johnson, no one talks about the camp Deontay's had. It's a really good camp. Robinson, Austin, Freiermuth, Washington, Connor Hayward, Najee Harris, Jaylen Warren. Like, when was the last time Pittsburgh had that kind of collection of skill guys?
Right. And here's the thing: a lot of people, when you talk about AB, man, and I'm not discrediting Ben Roethlisberger at all, because a lot of what he did led to this. AB, there were how many damn explosive plays did this team have with either Roethlisberger extending the play and getting the ball to AB and him running another 30 yards after it, or in structure, Ben hitting AB and AB getting another 30 yards after the catch. I mean, that guy was a yak monster, is what I'm getting. Then also we ran out of superlatives to describe some of the things that catches, and things that he did there. But yeah, I think the collectiveness is what you're going for here, right? I mean, and yeah, I would tend to agree. At least on paper, it looks like this is probably the best skill position since what, 2018.
Yeah, I mean, let's just go through it really briefly here. You would say it's better than last year, just based on everybody being a year older and the addition of Robinson and Austin returning. Do you think it's a better group than last year?
Oh yeah, by far. I mean, I think what Austin can help provide for this offense, along with Allen Robinson being experienced, easily.
Okay, so 2021, you had Deontay Johnson, rookie Najee Harris, rookie Pat Freiermuth, Chase Claypool in his second year, Ray McLeod, James Washington, Benny Snell, the backup running back. You would say it's better than that. I'm probably with you as well. 2020, I think there's an argument in 2020, but I still think it's better currently. Juju, Deontay, rookie Chase Claypool, who granted was very good that year, Eric Ebron, James Conner, James Washington, Benny Snell, Jaylen Samuels. That's kind of your collective at the top there.
The thing, I mean, Juju did so much for you after the catch,
Yeah, although that year he was like a pure underneath guy. That was the beginning of him becoming tight end, running back Juju Smith-Schuster.
Right.
But I think this group's probably potentially to be better.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
2019 was a mess. I think we can all agree it's not, Deontay's rookie year. Everybody was hurt. Tevin Jones is catching passes. There's no way this group was worse than 2019. And then, 2018 is the group of top receivers: Juju, AB, both over 1,000 yards, 100 catches, James Conner, Vance McDonald, Ryan Switzer, Jesse James, Jaylen Samuels, James Washington, I think his rookie year.
Yeah, the thing is, AB adds so much that it helps offset the rest of it,
Right. That's why I said I think it's the best group since 2018.
Right.
I think 2018 is still better because it had AB and Juju basically in their prime, but this group is probably deeper because once you got past the 2018 of Juju, Brown, Connor when healthy, McDonald, it kind of really falls off from there. Your Switzer, Jesse James, James Washington as a rookie. I think this group can be much deeper.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Yeah, for sure.
So,
and
all that.
Look, and me say, us saying that, look, if he hits 6.5 or 6.7 or even exceeds it, I think, especially with Matt Canada's offensive coordinator, I think that's a lot to be excited about. And once again, you can win if you have a quarterback that's consistently putting up on average a 6.5 adjusted net yards per passing attempt number or greater. And you have a top 10 defense, you can win some games. So once again, this goes back to, man, do you really need, people see the stats, they see, oh man, 30 touchdown passes and just 9 interceptions on, guys like Mahomes and all like that. There's other ways to win in the NFL. I mean, you don't have to have your quarterback go, throw 34 touchdowns in a season to win 10, 11, to get into the playoffs. You just, you don't. So, I mean, when you look back to some of these over and under numbers and all like that, look, ideally you want him over that 18.5 touchdown number for sure. I think, I mean, even if it's just like 19 or 20 with Pickett, but as far as the passing yards and go, what was that number, like 3450 or 3550 or something like that? I mean, he could still be around that number or slightly over, and you still win ball games. The key with him is, if you get more explosive plays in the passing game, that will help quite obviously with the adjusted net yards per passing attempt number. Same with not turning the football over, throwing interceptions. And then the touchdown passes, I mean, he's going to have it's obviously going to have to offset whatever interceptions that he has to some degree. But if he only throws like, 4 or 5 interceptions during the season, 20 touchdown passes will easily offset that number,
Will he only throw 4 or 5? That probably feels pretty optimistic.
I mean,
4 or 5 picks the whole season?
Yeah, that feels optimistic. I would think your goal's around 9.
Keep it under 10. Yeah, if you can throw 20 and 8, 20 touchdowns, 8 picks, right. I'll take that.
Right. But once again, I think this is the number that if he can get to that 6.5, which would not be the 2.0 jump with Matt Canada as offensive coordinator, and if that defense plays like we think they should be able to play, then they're going to be in some games this year. But once again, I would view this whole talk that we've had, that we've probably lost half the listenership on. Look, we talk because Alex and I like to talk on these things, and we go down rabbit holes and things catch our attention that a lot of people don't talk about here, and it just affords you guys the opportunity to listen to it. But I really think this was a topical situation, and I think this is a huge measuring stick statistically when it comes to Kenny Pickett, is can he hit that 6.7 number? I think I'm going to go out on a limb right now and say I think he can hit 6.5. And if he does, I think they're going to win some ball games. If he hits 6.7, well then, I mean, I think that's quite impressive based on this research that there's only been 12 quarterbacks since 1960 to make a 2.0 jump in that stat.
So let me just end the conversation this way. Do you think Pickett will be the 13th quarterback on that list after the 2023 season?
Man, that's, point 2 might not seem like all that much of a difference there, but it is.
I'll answer and say I think he just misses. I think he's in that 6.5 to 6.6 range. Very similar to Lawrence last year.
All right, write this number down. Right.
Okay.
Right. I'm going
old country song here.
I'm going SpongeBob. Well, write this
down.
down.
Oh, you're going SpongeBob. I went to old country song. Write this down. Who's that? Garth Brooks? I forget who sung that. Anyway,
man,
go ahead.
You're losing me here. 6.72.
So you think he'll do it?
I think he'll do it.
All right. 6.72. Let's. All right. You think that's his adjusted net yards?
Yeah. No tape. Now, obviously, that's him having a large selection of games and not getting injured and all like that. But write that down and see how close I come to it here. Now, obviously, look, if he does not even hit 6.5, you need to look at all the reasons why, and that includes obviously offensive coordinator, the tape, were there injuries and all like that. 6.5, in my opinion, should be the minimum. Would you agree?
I agree. I was going to just ask you as well, what number would he hit where you sit there and say Pittsburgh probably did not make the playoffs? I assume if he hit 6.5, you would bet on Pittsburgh making the playoffs if you just had that one number to determine Pittsburgh's season, which is obviously one number of many that are tough to encapsulate. But what number does he basically have to hit for this team for you to feel like this team would make the playoffs?
Well, once again, I'm measuring what I think the defense can be in this.
Sure.
On top of it here. But if he hits 6.5, I'm not going to guarantee that they'll be in the playoffs, but they'll be right there on the
right.
I'm just asking, right there on the line.
I'm just asking, what number do you think is going to be required to make you feel confident? Again, if all I told you, if you missed the entire
6.7, he's at 6.7. If he has an adjusted net yards number of 6.7, they should be in the playoffs, in my opinion, based on their schedule, based on their defense, based on everything of what we think that we know about this team right now. I think if he hits 6.7 or greater, that they'll be in the playoffs.
Now, what do you think the minimum is for you to still feel that way? Is it 6.5? If I told you he was 6.38, do you feel like Pittsburgh gets in the playoffs?
I don't think that's enough.
Okay, so you think 6.5 is that cutoff if you had to put a number to it?
Yeah, I think 6.5 puts them in the category where we're talking, all right, they're going into the final game of the season,
Okay.
With a chance here.
All right, we'll see. It was a good study, good discussion. We'll see what happens.
Yeah, and once again, you can find this at 365scores.com and shout out to Scott there. So good follow on Twitter as well too if you like all things stats and tape, and I think he's really at heart a Steelers fan on top of it there.
George Strait. It was George Strait. Write this down. You don't know that song? You're from the South, isn't that country? How do you not know George Strait?
Man, I was in, my parents listened to, the Statler. I mean, there were a lot of country growing up in my house. I mean, a lot of country. But there was also a lot of Elvis and Creedence Clearwater Revival and Tom Jones. My mom loved Tom Jones. And I mean, there was a lot of country, obviously. Ronnie Millsap, Charlie Rich, a lot of different musical influence in my house. But Glenn Campbell, I mean, a lot of these names before your time.
Yeah, don't know any of those names. I know George Strait.
Like a rhinestone cowboy. You've heard that.
That's yeah, I know that.
Glenn Campbell there. But I mean, I was into rock and roll as quickly as I could at a young age. So I listen. There's some country out there, especially some of today's country that's okay. But I'm not a big fan of country overall.
All right, Dave, I got to get the camp here in a little bit. Let's get through a couple quick reader emails if we have any and close out today's show.
All right, let us know what you think about today's show, the kind of the rabbit holes we went. Because look, we do these training camp wrap-ups, and we don't like to repeat. In the past, we have repeated some of the stuff that we've done at night. And really, why do that when we have another podcast to it? There really isn't much going on. We covered the transactions and the injuries, and to me, this makes an interesting discussion. So I'm really interested. Shoot me an email, theterriblepodcast@gmail.com. It says, my God, Dave, get off the adjusted net yards for passing attempt stat and quit. You two quit getting on Najee's case, or the opposite. Man, that was really a fun conversation there. Let me know either way, even if it's just, an FU and an email or something like that.
I enjoyed the conversation for whatever it's worth.
Right.
I had a good time.
I did too. Austin Hackett writes in. Austin's the one that's been following all these running backs around the league here. The Jets running back room now one to monitor as well. Depth chart includes Breece Hall, Dalvin Cook, Michael Carter. He says Tomlin and Colbert were at his UNC Pro Day, I believe. Xazavian Knight and Banakanda, who's having a nice preseason so far, albeit he doesn't seem like a special teams guy. So Austin Hackett's really in the market for the Steelers to watch some of these running back rooms around the NFL here. Oh, let's see here. Xavier Robinson writes in, over the offseason, you guys compared the Steelers to the Titans, and I think we already hit this from 3 days ago. Yeah, we hit this. So I think that was the only new email we had in there was from Austin from just the other day here overall. So I think we got most of them wrapped up here, Alex.
All right, we'll come back later today, recap what happened at Wednesday's practice, and then have one more on Thursday. Normal show on Friday. Team will have broken camp by then, so almost to the finish line of the week. And then, of course, a game on Saturday. So nonstop action here at Steelers Depot.
Absolutely. And once again, Alex and I will be back later on this evening to recap everything that he observed during the Wednesday training camp practice. So looking forward to that 35-minute discussion there. In the meantime, you can follow me on Twitter at Steelers Depot. Follow Alex on Twitter at Alex_Kozora. Follow the show at Terrible Podcast. Email the show, theterriblepodcast@gmail.com. If you like what we do and want to donate to the cause, SteelersDepot.com. Hit the donate button up right navigational bar. Also, if you like an ad-free version of the site, SteelersDepot.com. Hit that ad-free button up right navigational bar. So until Wednesday night, as always, thanks for listening to the Terrible Podcast with Dave and Alex.